Hello, everyone. Welcome to Trades Talk Tuesday on a Wednesday. I am your host, Pop Culture Mechanic. Please call me Pop. This stream is all about the skilled trades and what you can do to get involved with them and find out more about them. If you're interested in them, if you know someone that is in the trades and you want to know what's going on, then you can get in on it too. As I so often do, I will begin with the news in the trades, and we will turn to Plant Magazine, which has some pretty good articles in it. I'm going to start out with the number of job vacancies down in the third quarter. Let's see what it has to say. Statistics Canada says the number of job vacancies fell in the third quarter after reaching a record high in the second quarter. The agency says employers in Canada were actively seeking to fill 959,600 vacant positions in the third quarter, down 3.3% from 992,200 in April to June period. However, job vacancies in the third quarter remained elevated compared with before the pandemic. The job vacancy rate, which corresponds to the number of vacant positions as a proportion of total labor demand, was 5.4% in the third quarter, down from 5.7% in the second quarter, but up from 3.3% in the first quarter of 2020 at the onset of the pandemic. Statistics Canada says there was an average of 1.1 unemployed persons for each job vacancy in the third quarter of 2022, similar to the record low reached in the second quarter. However, the reading compared with an average of 2.3 unemployed persons for each job vacancy in the first quarter of 2020. Manufacturing, importing straws and other single-use plastics now banned. Okay, well that's interesting. Canada's ban on the manufacture and import for sale of some plastic items, including grocery bags and straws, has taken effect. As of today, companies can no longer produce or bring into Canada plastic checkout bags, cutlery, stir sticks, straws, and takeout containers. And in a year, it will also be illegal to sell them. The manufacturing and import ban will extend to the plastic bags used to package 6 packs of canned drinks next June, and their sale will be prohibited a year after that. The federal government estimates that getting rid of single-use plastic will eliminate 1.3 million tons of difficult-to-recycle plastic waste and 1 million garbage bags worth of pollution. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau promised in 2019 that a ban would take effect by 2021, but it took the government a year longer to figure out a regulatory framework to make it happen. Statistics published last month suggested that Canadians were already cutting back on using items such as straws and plastic bags ahead of a national ban. Yeah. We are just a population of 35 million or 36 million. We're a drop in the world bucket. Like, I wish this guy would, our prime minister would pull his head out of his ass and look around a bit, because we are a tiny drop in the bucket of the world as far as population goes. And people were starting to reduce their usage of plastics and everything anyway. Okay, here we go. Scientists, atmospheric carbon might turn lakes more acidic. For those of us that remember acid rain and all that back in the 70s, that turned the lakes acidic. But here, let's see what they have to say here. Traverse City, Michigan. The Great Lakes have endured a lot the past century, from supersized algae blobs to invasive mussels and blood-sucking sea lamprey that nearly wiped out fish populations. Now, another danger. They and other big lakes around the world might be getting more acidic, which could make them less hospitable for some fish and plants. Scientists are building a sensor network to spot Lake Huron water chemistry trends. It's a first step towards a hoped-for system that would track carbon dioxide and pH in all 5 Great Lakes over multiple years, said project co-leader Reagan Herrera of the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. If you change things chemically, you're going to change how things behave and work, and that includes the food web, says Herrera, a research ecologist with NOOA's Great Lakes Environmental Research Laboratory in Ann Arbor, Michigan. Does that mean your favorite fish might not be around anymore? We don't know that, but we know things will change. Maybe where and when they spawn, where they're located, what they eat. That's a pretty broad statement. Things will change. Yeah, you're pretty generalizing there. And why haven't they been tracking this since the 70s? I'm sure there's been some research facility or some place that it's been tracking the pH of the Great Lakes. You can't just think of it this year and be like, oh yeah, we're going to do that this year to check the pH. I mean, there had to be even state or local run organizations that would do that already. So I'm not buying it. But we'll see what it says here. Oceans are becoming more acidic as they absorb carbon dioxide that human activity pumps into the atmosphere, which gets pulled out by the trees and the algae because they take carbon dioxide and make oxygen. So they forget to mention that. The primary cause of climate change. Yeah, okay. Acidification endangers coral reefs and other marine life. Never mind all the ships that travel on there and dump their bilges into the ocean. Studies based on computer models suggest the same thing may be happening in big freshwater systems, but few programs are conducting long-term monitoring to find out or to investigate the ecological ripple effects. So they are out there. There are programs out there doing that. This doesn't mean the waters are going to be unsafe to swim in. It's not like we're making superacid battery liquid. Superacid battery liquid. And you're a science professor. Superacid battery liquid. Can't you just say sulfuric acid? We're talking about long-term change in the environment that to humans would be imperceptible. Okay. A 2018 study of 4 German reservoirs found their pH levels had declined, moving closer to acidity 3 times faster in 35 years than in oceans since the Industrial Revolution. Researchers say Great Lakes could approach acidity around the same rate as in the oceans by 2100. Data from the Lake Huron project will help determine if they're right. 2 sensors have been attached to a floating weather buoy in Thunder Bay National Marine Sanctuary near Alpena, Michigan. One measures carbon dioxide pressure in the water column and the other pH. Additionally, crews are collecting water samples at varying depths within the 4,300 square mile area for chemical analysis. Besides disrupting aquatic life and habitat, acidification could deteriorate hundreds of wooden shipwrecks believed resting on the bottom, said Stephanie Gandula, the sanctuary's resource protection coordinator and a study co-leader. Okay, shipwrecks at the bottom of the lakes. Okay, unless you're a diver, no one's ever going to see those, and they're going to deteriorate anyway. They're underwater. So she's trying to raise a red flag for nothing. Okay, back again. Should be okay. OBS disconnected for a minute there. I don't know. Is the stream not doing well? I can see it's fluctuating a bit with my upload rate. Should be. Oh no. Now it dropped off significantly again. Anyway, I'm going to power through here. Data is also needed for Lakes Erie, Michigan, Ontario, and Superior, she said. All are part of the world's largest surface freshwater system, but have distinct characteristics, including water chemistry, nutrients, and other conditions needed for healthy biological communities. Acidification from carbon dioxide overload in the atmosphere is different than acid rain caused by sulfur dioxide and nitrogen oxides from fossil fuel burning for electric power generation or manufacturing. Hey, Alex, you're going to sit in here while you warm up the car? Sounds good. Hope it's not too frosty out there for you. It was about minus 34 today, and I had to spend a bit of time trying to start the company truck up. It was just a pickup truck, but still it took about, I'd say, an hour to try and get that thing to turn over so it would fire up. Crazy. Man, was it cold out. Whew. Still is, but at least I'm inside now. Okay, the article goes on. While more potent acid rain covers relatively small areas and can be reduced with scrubbing equipment, as the U.S. Clean Air Act requires, but the effect of carbon-related acidification is worldwide and potentially more damaging because there's no easy or quick fix. And that's what they like. No easy or quick fix for carbon-related acidification. I think they're full of it. They're full of garbage. You're telling us this, and I'm not believing you. Anyway, the only solution is a global solution, McKinley said. Everyone cuts their... here we go. Here we go. Apparently you have to cut your carbon emission because it's doing such terrible things. Regardless of how well nations accomplish that, big lakes probably will continue acidifying as they absorb carbon dioxide already in the atmosphere, plus carbon-laden water runoff from the land, she said. Less certain are effects on ecosystems, although initial studies have raised concerns. Based on laboratory tests, scientists who documented soaring acidity in the German reservoirs found it can imperil a type of water flea by hampering defense from predators. The tiny crustaceans are an important food for amphibians and fish. Scientists in Taiwan experimented with Chinese mitten crabs, or an Asian delicacy, but an invasive species elsewhere. Increasing water acidity in lab tanks to projected 2100 levels more than tripled their mortality rates, according to a report last year. Well, anything, if you shock it with increased levels, will kill it. But if it's a gradual increase, I'm sure they'll develop some kind of protection or immunity to it. They'll evolve as animals do. Other studies have found freshwater acidification harms development and growth of young pink salmon, also known as humpback salmon, an important commercial and sport fishing species in Alaska and the Pacific Northwest. But it's unknown how such problems will get. It's unknown how big such problems will get, said Emily Stanley, a University of Wisconsin freshwater ecology professor. Oh, a professor. They brought in another professor. I honestly don't see this as a thing that we as lake scientists should be freaking out about, Stanley said. There are so many other challenges facing lakes that are larger and more immediate, such as invasive species and harmful algae. There you go. Somebody's talking sense now. Many lakes emit more carbon dioxide than they take in, she said, but other scientists say even those could acidify because their outflow will slow as atmospheric concentrations surge. Either way, tracking lakes' carbon dioxide levels is a good idea because the compound is fundamental to process including photosynthesis that algae and other aquatic plants use to make food, Stanley said. A crucial question is the effect of CO2-related acidification on microscopic plants called phytoplankton, said Beth Stauffer, a University of Louisiana at Lafayette biologist studying the situation around river mouths where fresh and ocean waters meet. Studies suggest some of the tiniest phytoplankton may thrive in acidic waters, while larger types, more nutritious for fish, fade. It's like walking into a buffet. Instead of having the salad bar and roast turkey, you just have Skittles, Stauffer said. Of particular interest for the Great Lakes are quagga mussels, said Harvey Boonsma, a University of Wisconsin Milwaukee Lake scientist. The prolific invaders have elbowed aside other plankton eaters and fueled nuisance algae. Acidification could weaken quagga's calcium carbonate shells as it has with other ocean mussels and clams. And a hello to you, Blaine. Nice to see you. It's, we're talking about the Great Lakes and their acidification. Or supposed acidification. They already took a beating in the 70s with acid rain, and now they're trying to say that it's the carbon dioxide that they're taking in that's causing more acidification. But that's hardly a silver lining, Herrera said. The same fate could befall native mussels that conservationists are struggling to protect. The potential upheaval in freshwater ecosystems is one example among many of global warming's long reach, she said. Oh, she didn't get the memo. It's no longer called global warming. It's climate change. So she's got to get her lingo up to speed here. Those greenhouse gases we're putting in the atmosphere have to go somewhere, Herrera said. The oceans and large freshwater bodies are where they're going, and acidification happens as a result. And this might be a natural thing that happens over time. You never know. We can't live long enough to see whether their things are a big cycle or not. They keep talking about that, and it's like, okay, maybe this is a naturally occurring phenomenon, and it'll come around again, and things will straighten themselves out. Anyway, next up, Magna International will buy Veoneer's active safety business for $1.525 billion. Magna, they're a maker of car parts, from what I understand. Friendly rivals with EV tensions in past, Canada poised to compete with biggest ally. Now, who's our biggest ally? Would that be the United States? Let's see what he has to say here. Washington. There we go. With cross-border auto tensions now in the rearview mirror, Prime Minister Trudeau is talking about Canada's next big bilateral challenge, head-to-head economic competition with the United States. From a Canadian perspective, the first 2 years of President Biden's term were all about countering a persistent bout of U.S. protectionism by preaching the virtues of trade between like-minded partners. Yeah, like, who? Saudi Arabia? Something sank in. Biden's panic-inducing plan to energize electric vehicle sales brought Canada and Mexico into the tent at the 11th hour, and Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen even coined a new term, friendly shoring, to placate America's anxious allies. But to hear Trudeau tell it, none of that means Canada is about to pull its punches in the coming battle for sustainable growth, higher-paying jobs, foreign investment, and international talent. Competitiveness with the U.S. has always been a challenge for us. It was a challenge under Trump. It was a challenge under every previous administration, he said in a year's end interview with the Canadian press. We'll always figure out ways to make sure that the Canadian advantage has plenty of room for growth, he said, along with reliable, diverse, and well-educated workforce that comes with built-in healthcare, make Canada an extremely attractive place to invest. I disagree with that because I don't think anyone wants to invest here because we don't take R&D seriously enough, and we don't take enough risks for that research and development. So I don't think they're going to be banging down our door to invest in here. Trudeau mentioned two specific examples. Steel giant ArcelorMittal Dofasco is converting its plant in Hamilton to make it less carbon intensive using electric arc furnaces instead of coal burning blast furnaces to slash annual carbon emissions by as much as 60%. The project, funded in part by the federal and Ontario governments, will make it the first major steelmaking facility in North America to make the switch, coming online in the next 4 years. And GM Canada announced last month that its assembly facility in Ingersoll, Ontario, would become the country's first to produce nothing but electric vehicles, with a target of 50,000 vans and trucks a year by 2025. We didn't beg them for that, Trudeau said. They just realized, the market's there and the quality is there. The Canadian workers are delivered. We're going to be more ambitious. Just because two countries are allies doesn't mean they can't be economic rivals, said Michael Harvey, Vice President, Policy and International with the Canadian Chamber of Commerce. We both cooperate with the United States, our closest ally, and we compete in the economic arena. So we do both, Harvey said. It's in Canada's interest to cooperate as much as we can, but where we need to compete, we do so. That includes the Inflation Reduction Act, the Marquee Climate Tax, the Marquee Climate Tax and Health Care package that abandoned Biden's original Buy American EV tax credits in favor of incentives that included Canadian-made vehicles. As much as Biden's signature on that bill was a stay of execution for Canada's auto sector and a boon to an emerging critical minerals industry, it was also a stark declaration of U.S. ambitions, Harvey added. If you look at the Inflation Reduction Act, what you've got is a major industrial policy spend. That means that Canada needs to step up and be able to compete with that, or else we can get left behind. So what is he saying then? Is he saying that our government should spend taxpayer money like the U.S. and do that? If that's the case, there's no way we can compete. We've got like 10% of the population that the Americans have. Like, there's just no way. It continues here. Critical minerals, the battery building blocks so integral to 21st century transportation and technology, are central to that effort. Canada jumped 3 spots to second place in Bloomberg NEF's annual ranking of players in the global lithium-ion battery supply chain, thanks to a healthy supply, growing North American demand, and robust upstream clean energy. The federal government has committed $3.8 billion this year alone to foster mining and processing efforts, as well as component manufacturing and EV production. Chrysler parent Stellantis. Okay, so Chrysler, in case you didn't know, is owned by something called Stellantis. They partnered with LG on a $4 billion EV plant in Windsor, while Volkswagen and Tesla are also kicking Canada's tires. So I wonder if they'll build a Volkswagen plant or a Tesla plant here. The country ranks second only to China, the world leader in battery metals refining, which is home to 75% of all battery manufacturing capacity worldwide, as well as virtually all of the planet's anode and electrolyte production. Yes. Why isn't anyone raising the red flags on their Chinese production and their production facilities and their factories? No, nobody wants to. None of our MPs or anything want to raise the flag about that. Okay, whatever. I guess they don't make as any carbon emissions. The U.S. remains third. Bloomberg NEF said in its November report, in part because it will still be reliant on raw material imports for batteries, especially from its free trade partners. That includes Canada, although the U.S. doesn't tend to mention it by name. Friendshoring is a rebuttal to those who argue that economic security can be achieved only through protectionism, Yellen wrote in a Project Syndicate essay last week. We don't seek to produce everything ourselves, nor do we seek to limit trade to a small group of countries. That would substantially harm the efficiency gains of trade and hurt U.S. competitiveness and innovation. To ensure Canada remains both a valued ally to the U.S. and the same weight class, it needs to focus on trade-enhancing infrastructure, including expanded port facilities to help keep supply chains strong, as well as ensuring more Canadians can take part in the labor force. Being right next to the United States, the most important economy in the world, is always going to be one of Canada's greatest economic advantages, he said. We need to make these investments in things that we really beef up our trade. Yeah, and I'm for more trade. The United States, why not? Big customer, got deep pockets. U.S. puts 36 more Chinese companies on trade blacklist. Ha! Drivers are stuck in limbo as world's oil supply reshuffles. Fusion breakthrough, a marvel of global scientific collaboration, including Canada. The latest floating liquid natural gas terminal arrives at German port. Oh, this one ought to be good for a laugh. Canada to end international fossil fuel financing with some exceptions. Yeah. Canada's long-awaited plan to end public financing for international fossil fuel projects is here at last, and despite some loopholes, represents a major milestone, environmental groups say. The guidelines announced by Natural Resources Minister Jonathan Wilkinson on December 8th follow through on Canada's commitment to the 2021 Glasgow Statement, in which nearly 40 countries and institutions pledged to use public resources to support a clean energy transition and end unabated international fossil fuel financing by the end of 2022. Yeah, just a few though, Blaine. Just a few. The pledge only applies to unabated fossil fuel projects, those that don't use technology to capture greenhouse gas emissions when producing oil, coal, or gas. Unabated or not, all fossil fuels create planet-warming pollution when burned, and there's no way to capture the greenhouse gas emissions coming out of a tailpipe. Yeah, but with what we have now, with all the technology we have, you can have. That's what your catalytic converter is all about removing the toxins. It won't get all of them, but it gets a majority of them. Same with diesel trucks. They burn at such a high temperature And they have lots of what's called DEF, and they use that, and it combines with the exhaust that comes out, and the heavy stuff falls into a filter, and yeah, the rest of it just goes out the pipe. But it's not as bad as it used to be for diesel trucks. And low sulfur now, low sulfur diesel. They are a lot better than they used to be. Like, and I'm talking like back in the 70s. No way is weak talk, but to be fair, I haven't had a catted vehicle for a while. Okay. It goes on now. The policy contains exemptions for natural gas, hydrogen, made using fossil fuels, and carbon capture utilization and storage technology, among others. Whether this policy is implemented with integrity to really close the door on those exceptions remains to be seen. Julie Levin, National Climate Program Manager for Environmental Defense, told Canada's National Observer. The conditions attached to the exceptions are really strong, said Levin. For example, one of the 3 conditions for a natural gas exemption requires that there to be no viable renewable alternative, and there's almost always a cheaper viable renewable alternative, she added. The guidelines also state any project receiving public finance must align with a pathway consistent with limiting global heating to 1.5 degrees Celsius, and the science is clear that new fossil fuel projects are incompatible with that goal. In theory, this should keep fossil fuels in the ground. Yeah, I'm not buying it. I'm not buying it. These guys can talk all day and all night about it, but I don't believe you. We've been lied to way too many times by the government. Spoiler alert. Oh, I don't have Spoiler Gundam. Well, that's your thing. That's okay. Michael in the chat. Michael? Spoilers, Michael. The natural gas exemption is a huge pill to swallow and emblematic of the immense pressure the government of Canada always receives when it comes to tackling the gas and oil lobby in this country, said Eddie Pereira's International Climate Diplomacy Director of Climate Action Network. They found a loophole. Yeah. Just like I heard for, free range chickens. You know, they have those massive coops that they go in and they pack them in there. Do you only need to have like a little doorway with a fenced in part that the chickens can go to? And there you go. They're free range. That's their stipulation. So there's always going to be, like, say, a loophole, and they'll exploit it to as much as they can. This exemption allows for support for projects on national security grounds, including ensuring the energy security requirements of Canada, an ally or other recipient country deemed important to Canada's national interests on a case-by-case basis. So there you go. All they have to do is go, yeah, it's important to our national interests, so yep, you guys are exempt. That's all it takes. So there you go. Other signatories to the Glasgow Statement do not have this sweeping loophole, and Russia's invasion of Ukraine could provide easy justification. The new policy goes into effect on January 1st and applies to all federal departments, agencies, and Crown corporations. The most impacted will be Export Development Canada, a Crown corporation and prolific financer of fossil fuels that provided up to $18 billion for oil and gas companies in 2022 and just $790 million for clean energy, according to an analysis by Environmental Defense. Policy will redirect $2.5 billion of EDC's fossil finance towards implementing climate goals, and Natural Resources Canada says the Crown Corporation plans to continue scaling its annual financing for clean technology with an objective to grow investment from $6.3 billion in 2021 to $10 billion by 2025. As EDC shifts public financing away from fossil fuels and towards clean tech projects, must be done in a way that respects and upholds Indigenous people's rights, is people-led, aligns with the climate-safe future, and centers the health and safety of communities, Perez emphasized. Today's decision actually helps make the case that with proper amount of pressure, resistance from civil society, from experts, from members of parliament, that kind of effort pays off. The next step, tackling public financing of fossil fuels at home. The majority of public financing continues to be for domestic fossil fuels, said Levin. The federal government has committed to phase out and rationalize inefficient fossil fuel subsidies by 2023 and end domestic fossil fuel financing, but the latter has no timeline attached, and today's release offered no next steps on that commitment. But this does not set us up well. A really strong phase out of domestic public financing is in the very near future. That's nice. These guys can keep yapping it up, but you know what? We need fuel to keep things rolling along, so it's going to take a lot of years. Okay. We'll move along next then. That's enough news of the day today. Enough to make a guy angry anyway. As I've said before, there's plenty of trades to choose from. I just chose this one website called Career Exploration Program. Skilled Trade Careers, know all the options. It's at asvabprogram.com. And it talks about how to do it. Fast tracking and starting a career. Tells you that college isn't the right option for everybody, and that's all right. You can go to different skilled trades in the agriculture industry. You can be a farm or ranch manager, agricultural equipment operator, animal husbandry and animal caretaker, forest and conservation technician, and nursery and greenhouse manager. And there's more, but they can't click on that. Can't find out what the more is. There's construction skilled trades, carpenter, electrician, plumber, pipe fitter and steam fitter, mason, painter, heating and air conditioning technician. Those guys, right now, this time of year, HVAC guys, busy like crazy. Everyone has trouble with their furnaces in the wintertime. Everybody wants their heat and they want it now. You have freezing pipes, you're having an emergency. In the summertime, hot out, everybody wants air conditioning to work. They want it to not be frosting up and stopping it from cooling the air down. And so who do they call? The HVAC guy. They are busy. Transportation skilled trades, automotive motorcycle service technician, bus operator, train operator, heavy equipment operator, heavy equipment technician, aircraft maintenance technician. The service skilled trades, nursing assistant, licensed practical nurse, chef, baker, food service manager, hairdresser, landscape architects. And manufacturing and industrial skilled trades, welder, machinist, metal fabricator, tool and die maker. You have to be very precise if you're going to be a tool and die maker. You're making either measuring tools or like dies and such for cutting threads and things into steel. So they have to be precise. It had the question, should your child consider skilled trade work? My answer is yes. Like, don't tell your kids it's disgraceful or anything like that, or try to shy them away from it. You have to see whether they have if they're adept at doing anything mechanical or anything like that, or electrical. What else does it say here? Public or private technical college. More commonly known as trade school, a technical college is a post-secondary educational institution that offers skilled trades, career training. Yes, Alex. Technical college can be public or private, but all provide hands-on training. All the curriculum focuses on relevant training for the specific job a student is pursuing, unlike a college or university, which will require students to take classes or credits outside their particular area of study. I don't agree with that either. You're training, you want to get knowledge in your one area. Don't tell me to go and do something else. Every program is unique, but technical training programs usually take several months to a year or two to complete, require a high school diploma, and cost significantly less than the 2 or 4 year college degree. This is true. When I went to my college training, I had to pay $110 a month. And that was back in the early 90s. And so that was very reasonable. Additionally, most schools offer scholarships, grants, and loans to offset the cost of training. Some employers will even contribute to students' technical education costs since skilled worker demand is so high. Work study and apprenticeships offer another opportunity to earn money while attending technical college. Apprenticeships can be part of CTE in high school or technical college programs. An employer sponsors apprenticeships, so you can start on-the-job training straight out of high school. If you work for an employer that offers a job training program, check out apprenticeships.gov or apprenticeship.gov. It's a great resource for finding an apprenticeship. Oh, there you go. For all my American friends, apparently you go to apprenticeship.gov and they'll have something there for you. Oh yeah, the military, it says here, that's a viable way to get trained up too. You serve your country and you get trained and get a skilled trade out of it once you've done your electrician apprenticeship. There you go, Alex. That's the stuff. And don't forget, electricians, you can do residential and you can do commercial and you can do industrial. And I find that a lot of guys that do residential have a hard time going into industrial because it's not just about running cable and all that. It's about troubleshooting and finding out, where the problems are. The robots that will take your jobs, you still need people to work on them. That's right. That is so right. You should know your robotics so that you can, fix them up. Or if they get unruly and they start to take over the world, you can take them down. So I did some looking around here and I looked up like millwright trade jobs in New York. And why did I pick New York? It's a big city. I thought, I don't know much about U.S. geography. So I'm like, okay, well, New York, it's on the East Coast. It's a giant city. So what do they have for trades and trade schools there? And here you go. Considering a career as a millwright in New York, job projection, 12% up. Median salary, $60,000. Is that good? Anybody? Is $60,000 a year good in New York? I don't know. 100 job openings? I mean, it says you're in luck. Jobs for millwrights in New York are projected to grow, and these jobs tend to pay higher than average. Millwrights in New York earn higher salaries than the typical U.S. wage earner. Oh, okay. How many millwrights work in New York? There are approximately 990 workers employed as millwrights in this state. That doesn't seem like a lot at all for a state with like that many millions of people. That was in 2018. There were 790 millwrights employed in the state in 2017. That's growth of 200 jobs. Yeah, it's definitely gone up. And there's a few graphs here showing how many New York has compared to the rest of the country. And job projections, nation versus New York, they're going to be up, looks like. Okay. Oh, here we go. In 2018, wages for millwrights ranged from $42,000 to $106,000, with $60,000 being the median annual salary. Okay. Broken down to an hourly rate, workers in the field made anywhere from $20.53 an hour to $51.11 an hour. Whew. Median hourly rate was $28. Workers in this field were paid a median of $30.74 an hour in 2017. That's pretty darn good. The median salary in New York is higher than the nationwide median salary. Okay. Top New York metros for millwrights. Table below shows some of the metros in this state. The most millwrights. New York, New Jersey City. Okay. Buffalo, Cheektowaga, Niagara Falls, New York. Rochester, Albany, Schenectady, Glen Falls. Top states for mill rates by employment. Texas. Texas has lots of them. And California, then Ohio, Michigan. Who's at the bottom of the list? Minnesota. Below are states where mill rates get paid the most. New Mexico, New Jersey, California, Illinois, Utah, Michigan, Arizona, Wisconsin, Alaska, Nevada. I don't think you have to get paid a lot in Nevada, though. I think isn't the state tax low in Nevada? I'm not too familiar with Nevada. But there you go. It says here, what major will prepare you for a millwright career? And it says mechanic and repair technologies, heavy industrial equipment maintenance, industrial mechanics, and maintenance technology. So if you take those, that will prepare you for a career as being a millwright. The Nevada tax is gambling. Yeah, I figured they must get a lot of revenue from that so they can keep the state tax low. I don't know what the sales tax is, but okay, this goes in pretty in-depth here as to what you need. If you're going to do mechanic and repair technologies, it says your education level and knowledge areas. So you need mechanical, obviously, customer and personal service, English language, computers and electronics, and mathematics. Okay. And skills for mechanic and repair technology majors. Repairing, yeah. Critical thinking, another good one. Troubleshooting. That's one of the most hardest things to do. To be a good troubleshooter, you really need to know your stuff. Operation monitoring and quality control analysis. Abilities for mechanic and repair technology majors. This is like physical stuff you need to be able to do. Near vision, arm, hand steadiness, finger dexterity, problem sensitivity, manual dexterity, all the stuff you need, yeah. What can you do with a mechanic and repair technologies major? You can do all this stuff. Aircraft, auto body, glass installers, master mechanics, avionics, bicycle repairs, electrical and electronics installers, geothermal technicians, industrial machinery mechanics, maintenance workers, millwrights, yeah. Motorcycle mechanics, painters, precision instrument and equipment repairers, radio mechanics, rail car repairers. Ooh, that'd be fun, working on rail cars. That's the heavy stuff, that's for sure. Wind turbine service technicians. Yeah, nice. The education level. Honestly, you just need grade 10. You've made it through grade 10, you can be in the trades. If you get your graduate from high school, that's good too. All right, I think I'm going to show one of the centrifuges that I was working on. We'll just go like this. We'll go like that. There we go. Take that away. Okay. Show and tell time. I'm just going to find a better overview here. So these, if you see the picture on your screen, these are centrifuges. And what they do is they take human waste. We call it sludge because that's how it arrives. It's in a sludge form. They take it, they pump it in the end here. As you can see, it follows this line up here. This line off here contains what's called polymer. So the polymer is a dust, and when it's added to liquid, or like water, it grabs onto any particles and it makes larger, it sticks together like a gum. So these both get pumped into the end of this centrifuge, which has two large motors on there, one at the back and one at the front. And they spin in the same direction. And this is what it looks like inside there. There's a large, what we call bowl. So this is a bowl. And inside it is something called a scroll, which just looks like a big screw that spins. And it grabs the solids and pushes them out the end. So it grabs the solids and it turns and it screws it out till it goes out the end. And this end here. This is actually backwards. This thing has to spin around. If we were going to install it, we'd spin it around. And we would set it in here underneath this cover. And the solids go out this end. And the liquid that gets separated, because centrifuge separates solid from liquid, goes out this end. So the liquid goes out this end, solid goes out this end. So these things spin at about 2,600 RPM. It weighs about 10,000 pounds. So you have 10,000 pounds spinning at 2,600 RPM. I want to tell you, just the noise that it makes is just unreal. You have to have double hearing protection when you're in there. Plugs and earmuffs, because this just screams in here. And as you can see, there's the two old style, and then there's a second generation one, which is a little bit quieter. And apparently it could put out more material. But I don't know if that's true or not. So yes, centrifuges. Very loud, very big. And can be very messy too. So you have to put them in their own room. And this was on like the fourth floor. Because what they would do underneath this floor is a large tank. So it can just dump the stuff straight into it when it's ready to go. As you can see, the pipes coming up from the lower floor. There's a little better shot of that the scroll, or the bowl. That thing weighs 10,000 pounds. And that is the bags of polymer they would use. So you've got 1-ton bags of polymer, and they would take those and they would lift them up with this thing here. That's where they would set them, and it would get metered in. First it would get pumped into a tank of water as it would get mixed up, and then it would get metered into the stream. Okay, here we are. We're getting into the ugly stuff now. So what you're looking at, that is human waste right there. That is where the solids come out the back end, as I was explaining to you before. And that got clogged up pretty bad. So it had to be cleaned. And that would, yeah, as you can see, it's all plugged up here. The door opens at the bottom of this pit, and it lets everything fall through to the tank below. I didn't get a good shot of that, but there you go. That's a little better. You look down in there, and that is where I think the door is closed right now. It's not open to let everything in there. But yes, the vibration of the centrifuges is so much that it cracks the grouting. As you can see here, it just shook itself with all that vibration. These guys are still okay, it looks like. You're so glad last week the fire main broke at work and not sewage? Yeah. Yeah, the old So you don't ever want sewage to be breaking on you. That's just nasty. But yes, so the vibration is so much it just shakes it all. And this is what drives it. You need 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. You need 12 V-belts just to drive this thing. So this is a giant shiv on this motor. Like you've got 12 belts to drive that centrifuge. And those, you want to change those, man, you're in for, that's got to be at least an 8-hour job. You have to do so much to get at it. And because they're all continuous, you have to push the motor closer and then try to work them off on the one. On this end is fine, but the other end is where it gets difficult. Yeah. I took a few pictures just to show how much they wore away. You can see on this right-hand side, those belts have worn a little more into the shiv as opposed to the other two. It almost looks like the cover came off. Because you want banded belts. You want belts that are all together and run all together. So you get the banded ones that are, all together. And it looks like the banding came off the top. This one, that's not a very good picture. This one, that's a little better. This is from the spray of the water. It has eaten away that piece of metal. So what needs to happen now is a welder needs to go in there and weld that up so it doesn't bust through to the other side. And that's all from the water spinning around fast and hitting it and just wearing it away. So what we need to do is, after that's repaired, you put in a piece of rubber wear plate and you slide it down into there, and hopefully that keeps it from wearing away the metal. You can wear away the rubber because that's the wear part, but I don't know whatever happened about this because I got pulled off that job. But yes, that is wearing from water. So in case you were wondering, you take your sludge after it gets pumped over to you from one of the lagoons, and you fire these guys up, and you separate the liquid from the solid. The solid falls down in here into a holding tank, and then from there it gets pumped to 2 holding silos, and then you get trucks that have long boxes on them, and they just load right up and they drive it away, and I think they take it to like farmers' fields and stuff like that to use as fertilizer. So that's where everything goes there. And the water just gets pumped back out to lagoons to be evaporated. I wish I had some videos for you videos to show you of this, because it's quite amazing watching and hearing these things run. And you can see in the background there some hydraulic power packs. These are what drive the pumps that push the solid sludge around. Hydraulic. You need hydraulic powered pumps because it's so thick that these guys will have to push extremely hard to move the stuff through the pipe. Move all the sludge through the pipe. So yeah. Fun stuff. The only time I liked it was when all the machines were shut off and it was quiet up there and you could work without having to have the noise just cut right through your body. It was never very pleasant at all. But yeah, I wish I had more pictures to show you guys. I don't think I took many at that time. But yes, I'm glad I've got to work on them because they're very interesting to work on. They have their own cooling system. They have oil-cooled bearings. So at each end, I don't know if you can see it on here. Okay, no, they're wrapped up. Maybe it'll be on this one. Okay, now it's wrapped up too. Anyways, on each end of this big bowl is 2 large bearings to support the thing. Well, you need to cool them because they run so all the time. They run constantly. These things, you don't start them up and shut them down. Once you start them, you keep them running unless there's something wrong. So as you can see here, an oil reservoir and a pump, and it would pump oil in and back out again and back into the reservoir, just for bearing lubrication and cooling. So you always had to make sure that was full and that nothing was leaking. And there is a intercooler. It's a little hard to see. It's back there though, anyway. And sometimes that would get worn out, and then you'd get water in your oil. Then you'd have to change it, flush it out. So it would be quite the ordeal. But yes, that was another thing that I learned about that, is always keep an eye on your intercooler. Make sure that it's in good shape and that it's doing its job. And you always check the color of the oil. Make sure it doesn't look milky, otherwise it's got water in it. So yes. Centrifuges. Very loud, very big. They do a pretty important job as far as getting rid of human waste and making it so that it's a lot easier to move around. Now, any questions, anybody? Anybody? Questions? Questions about centrifuges? Working with this stuff? God, it was so filthy. Just dirty. That is, you're looking at concentrated poo right there. That's what it looks like when it's all had the water taken out of it and it's all concentrated. It's not for the faint of heart or the faint of stomach. Working in waste disposal, waste management. You sure see a lot of stuff. You learn a lot about it too. You think to yourself, oh, recycling. Oh, look at that. You know, I'm doing my part. We're recycling. Everything's going good. Help the planet. And then you actually see behind the scenes as to what really goes on. And you're just like, oh, okay. Well, it's a big illusion. Anyway, I hope everyone has had a fun time on the stream tonight. Get to see a few things you don't normally get to see. Get to hear a few things you don't normally get to hear. I am quite happy to have been able to show you this. Remember, always spread the word about the skilled trades. We sure need people. I am very, very hopeful that we will start having more people come into the skilled trades. It's very important. If you think you're too old, you're wrong. I've known guys that were 50 years old and they were getting their apprenticeship done. So you're never too old. You can always get your journeyman ticket, and you can always be earning that top wage. You know, you got to make life better for yourself, and the only one that can do it is you. You have to make the choice, and you have to knuckle down and tell yourself, okay, I'm going to do this. Well, maybe that's enough of me being on my soapbox preaching. I was quite happy that you guys were able to stop by. You know, Alex, it's always a pleasure. Blaine, anyone else that was lurking, I really appreciate you coming by. Please slap the like button. It helps me out. Hopefully everyone has a good time. This was on a Wednesday, not a Tuesday. I had previous engagement on Tuesday, so Wednesday's okay. Hopefully you had a fun time. I know I did. I always like spreading the word about skilled trades. So yeah, there's your choice of channels out there, and I'm glad you visited mine. There's other people out there that put out good content as well. People like Pacific 414 or Blaine from Blaine's Escape Corner, Ronan66. You can visit DJ Ronnie G or Brandon the Anime Guy. There's the Nerdtorial Lifeform and Punkwaddle from Floral from Under a Rock. Myself, I have a Discord. It's called The Shop because, you know, tradesmen hang out to shut the shop and shoot the breeze. I'm also on Twitter, Bitchute. I have some videos, so does Odysee and Rumble, and broadcasting on Twitch. So I want to thank everyone very much for being here. I appreciate you. This is your host, Pop Culture Mechanic, and I am signing off.